Welcome to Literally Books, the podcast where we read literally anything because it shouldn't be a saga to find your next favorite read. I'm Lindsay.
My name is Magda.
And today we're going to be talking all about Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. It's going to be very
literary,
very sapphic, very vampiric. It's going to be a good day.
It's going to be a good one. What have you been reading?
What have I been reading? Oh, I thought I was going to ask you question.
I just went straight into it.
Okay, I'm reading this book called Of Monsters and Mainframes by Barbara Truelove. This came up in our Sci-Fi for Mystery Lovers with Michelle at Bibliovino.
How is it?
Okay, so again, in the context of this conversation with Sci-Fi for Mystery Lovers, so the book is about a sentient spaceship, and it's AI medical sidekick. It's medical AI sidekick, and they solve kind of monster of the week mysteries.
Oh, I love this.
It's pretty it's very entertaining. At first I was like, what is going on here? Because basically it starts with the ship has a bunch of people, something mysterious happens, they think it's a vampire, everyone dies. The ship gets a big reputation for being a ghost ship, but nobody believes that it's actually a vampire. They think the ship malfunctioned. And so it's but I didn't malfunction. And that keeps happening with different kind of monsters of the week. So there's Cthulhu, there's Frankenstein. It's a really good ride. Here's what I'm going to say though. Do not, under any circumstances, get the audiobook for this.
Okay. Did you do that one or what?
I did. And I love the story, so I'm continuing on with it. But the beginning of every section is binary. And so you'll have a full 3 minutes of 1 0 1 1 0 1 1. And it goes on for 4 minutes. And you're like, I'm going to go. I keep reading it while I'm going to bed and then getting up and being like, oh my God, it's so terrifying sounding.
Do we know what the sequence means?
No, I should look it up. It's hard because it's an audiobook, so I can't copy it and figure out what it is.
It has to be online that somebody says this is what it means.
Yeah, there's certainly some deeper meaning. Yeah. But anyway, it's a really good time.
I love that. Yeah. Bibliovino, Michelle gave us some really, really good recommendations. There's a couple of her lists that I also added to my TBR.
Yeah.
Because it's a pretty interesting genre, sci-fi with a little bit of mystery.
It is it's a good time. I've never seen fantasy monster elements, classic monster elements weaved into sci-fi like this before. It's really interesting.
I love that.
Anyway, yeah. What are you reading?
So I finished reading Martyr by Kaveh Akbar.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So I know that we've had this one in our TBR for a little bit,
really have.
But my Libby came through and they're like, here, you have 1 week because you skipped the line. So I'm like, oh my gosh. I started reading it. It's very good. I think this is a book, Lindsay, that would be right up your alley. This would be one of your favorite books. I
never know if that's an insult.
It's not. It's just it's a very literary book and the author takes a lot of risks. The story follows this Persian immigrant Cyrus, who he moved to the U.S. when he was a baby, and he's gone through a lot of loss throughout his life. His mom died in this plane explosion that was caused by the U.S., where somebody just threw a missile up there, and then the plane just disintegrated immediately when he was a baby, and that's kind of what caused him and his father to kind of leave the country and then come to the U.S. So it's really sad. So he's gone through quite a bit of losses, and he just recently also lost his father. So he's going through this moment of questioning, is there meaning in death? When you die, should there be some sort of meaning? And he starts really existential, kind of putting it that way, because he's trying to find the meaning in his mom's death. That just seems so unnecessary. And as he's going through these ups and downs, there's a lot of addiction talk, self-harming. So just kind of keep that in mind. But it's in a very light way. We're not going down really dark thoughts. I don't know how to explain that.
No, I find that when people are oh, they're kind of skimming on top of something really dark. That is my favorite kind of writing.
Yeah, and it was because I don't really like those if you go super dark like that.
I know, Demon Copperhead too much.
Those too much. But this one is just he's kind of a young guy. He's 30, maybe 29, 30 years old. So he's still not mature enough to process a lot of these things, so he's still kind of taking it in a lighthearted way. But anyways, he kind of finds this performative artist that is doing this exhibition in the Brooklyn Museum where she's literally dying of cancer, and she decided to stop all treatment, and she's just living in the museum, and people can come up and talk to her, and that's her exhibition, seeing her die. So it just kind of, and this artist is really interconnected to his life, and it is just a quite beautiful story. There are elements of it that I think could be hallucination and dream sequences that I think the author is kind of trying to do if two readers were to read this, you're not gonna know what parts of it were real and what parts were happening like a hallucination and a way for him to process certain things, which I normally don't like that, but I think it was done quite well here. Although the ending did come out of nowhere, but it's okay. It was fine. It's pretty cool. Like, I think the more I thought about it, the more I liked it. But I think this would be right up your alley because it's like very literary. There's a lot of themes and things going on around within this book, and it is quite beautiful. But yeah, it was good. You know what? No, it was really good. I liked it. Yeah,
that's my favorite kind of book. You're like, it's like that Brittany Broski meme where she's like, where she's like, yes, no, yes, yeah. Oh, well.
No, it is really good. It's quite beautiful. And the story, like, again, it sounds like the themes are really dark, but it's not. It is not a dark book, and I don't know how else to explain that. It was really cool.
Okay, you might have just. I mean, we have 9 million books to read in like the next month, but I might move it up my TBR. You know what's interesting too? Between our 2 books, we kind of perfectly prepared for the topic of discussion today because your book is all about what is the meaning of death, what is the meaning of life, what's the value of those things.
Exactly.
And mine was Monsters of the Week. Like, weirdly, they were on theme.
Yeah, you know, the Kaveh Akbar one was really literary too, which we're gonna get into, or V. Schwab one, which very literary. I was not prepared for how literary this was going to be.
Yes, I know. V. Schwab is such a good writer. She really is. Like, whether or not you connect with her stories, her writing is just beautiful.
I mean, some of the ways that we're gonna get into this. We're gonna wait.
This is a sign of how good this episode is gonna be. We're excited to talk about it.
We're gonna wait. So maybe let's take a little bit of a break, and then we'll be right back.
Welcome back. We're going to get into our primary discussion today, which is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. Magda, do you want to get us started with our intro to the book?
Bury my bones in the midnight soil, plant them shallow and water them deep, and in my place will grow a feral rose, soft red petals hiding sharp white teeth.
It's so good. Okay. That's like the first page of the book. And we know like we're going somewhere
deep and feral.
Beautiful, feral.
And
yes.
I love it.
It's really like it's an allegory for this podcast.
I love it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, should we start with a little synopsis?
Yes, let's do it.
So the novel spans over 5 centuries with 3 women at its core: Maria Sabine, we'll explain that in a minute, in Spain in the early 1500s; Charlotte, or Lottie, who lives in London in 1827; and Alice in modern Boston, whose lives are entwined through the cycle of transformation into vampires. Okay, I think in terms of structure, we've talked about this. I think we kind of break them into the sections of the book, and we'll give you all a background on each one of these incredible women that we follow, and then we'll talk about the ways in which their lives are entwined.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. And I think with that, maybe we can kind of start with Maria and Sabine.
Maria Sabine, yes.
This is an interesting one. Do you want to read the little story that you have here? Or
sure.
Do we want...
Okay, so let's talk about Maria/Sabine, and we'll talk about why she has 2 names.
Ooh.
So we meet Maria as a small child in Spain in the 16th century, and she yearns to leave her rural surroundings. She lives in a really small town. People are constantly traveling through it, and she has 2 older brothers who are harassing her at any given moment, and she wants to leave more than anything in the world. So she basically negotiates with her brother to marry her off to this wealthy viscount named Andres. Andres sucks in every sense of the word. He's constantly trying to get her pregnant. She has literally no sexual interest in him whatsoever. And then he leaves her to go off to war and sends her to his parents' house. Mm-hmm. And he sends her to his parents' house. And she lives there. His parents suck. They give her no freedom. She's barely allowed to leave the house. She's never allowed to be alone. And she convinces her mother-in-law to start letting her go out in the town together. So they like do these town markets. And it's there that she re-meets a widow that she met as a child who was selling sort of herbal tinctures. And it's very strange because the widow has not aged at all. Mm-hmm. And basically she develops this friendship with the widow whose name is Sabine.
Yes.
And Maria says after she hits her breaking point, like, I'll do anything, Sabine, to get me out of this environment. What can you do to help me? And it's at that point that Sabine turns Maria into a vampire.
Yeah. And I think we should kind of unpack a little bit, because that's a lot already that's happening.
So much. I mean, these are like, that's high level plot points, literally nothing to do with the book. It's just how we got there.
Exactly. And I kind of really love the arc of Maria herself, because she was such an independent thinker, and she already knew, for somebody that is living in the constructs of the 1500s in very Catholic Spain, we have to kind of think about that. She knew her mind and what she wanted and didn't want from the very beginning. I mean, we have to kind of remember that she's the one that sought out Andres because he was a viscount, and she, you know, she was really young. She was like 18 or something when she married him.
Yeah.
Like she was married off, and she's the one that kind of sought him out, even though supposedly, like, I think her rank was a little bit lower than he, but like she tried to make that happen. So she was this calculating young woman from the very beginning, which I really admired. And then when she got married, she knew that she did not want to have kids, like really early on. So she was like looking out for like these potions and things to make sure that she wouldn't get pregnant.
I actually that's where, like, at the very beginning of the book, I was like, oh, we're going somewhere very new here, because you're kind of expecting that Maria is going to be like meek and like, oh, I don't want to marry him. I don't want to have sex with him. And she doesn't want to have sex with him. That's really clear. But like, she knows that that's a part of the deal that she's going to get as a woman. And so she manipulates it 100% to her favor. Like, we don't get a point where she feels like scared or not in control, even though she probably does feel that way. Like, from the narration perspective, she's like, I've got this. I know what I'm doing.
Yes.
It's really empowering.
Yes. And not only that, I think she had this feeling from the very beginning, like, I don't think she wanted to be controlled, and she always yearned for freedom. Like, she wanted to be independent, and she knew that she had to get married, and that was just the thing that she had to do. But like, she was in the back of her mind, how do I get away from this? Like, this is not the life that I was meant to live, which is pretty like cool for somebody in those times where like you have been so indoctrinated into this system. Like, you just get married and have babies, and then you just live in your little corner, and that's it. You have no power over yourself. So it was just, I thought that was like really cool. And like, I wonder, like, that kind of made me think, like, I wonder how many women at that time thought the same way, but they were just kind of stuck in this like an impossible position.
Yes. And I think what's also interesting about her is that it's like, you root for her because of that. You root for her because you're like, yeah, I wouldn't want to be controlled either. She is wild. She is rebellious. She is manipulative, but it's to get what you would want as a baseline human being, which is like freedom over your own body and decisions. But where she gets more complicated, and why this book is really good, is that there are also a lot of things, even as Maria, before she gets turned into a vampire, that you're sort of like, uh-oh, like, she's very into stuff. She's extremely materialistic, and she's very into being wealthy. And she talks about, like, she chose Andres because she wanted the wealth that he could provide. She wanted the lifestyle. She wanted the pretty dresses. And I don't think it's very often that we get women who are allowed to admit that without them seeming really vain.
She was kind of unapologetically herself, and I kind of loved that. Yeah, it was so good. And I think we talked about this big ruby pendant that Andres gifts to her, and she loved that so much. And like, that was like her pride and joy. Like, even though, well, not her pride and joy, but it was something that she loved, but it also represented other things. And I think this is kind of when we get into how beautiful V.E. Schwab's writing is, that she starts leaving all of these little symbols and motifs throughout the story. And I think this particular red ruby, when she turns into a vampire, she goes kind of like not crazy, but it's like her liberation point, where she just goes like full on massacre and kills like Andres, the entire family, the servants, and everything. And in one of her escapes, like when she's trying to like escape from everything, she offers this pendant to another person to kind of like offer her hiding. And I don't know if she ends up killing her or not. I can't remember. But to me, that just kind of represented her step away from like, I'm giving this up in order for me to kind of get my freedom.
But she's also bartering up, because I think it's interesting. Like, yes, the ruby is a sign of her love of like wealth, of more. I think she's a person who is never satisfied, and that continues well on into her vampirism. Like, she is the kind of person who loves the idea of like being hungry and like the hunt and being, you know, like always wanting more and more and more. And like you said, she kills her entire family. That's totally unnecessary. She's already gotten freedom. She's way more powerful than Andres. She could have just left, but she doesn't. And she also, most notably, kills Sabine, who turns her. So like, this is a moment that's important because, one, Sabine sort of reaches out to her intimately, and you get a sense that like, oh, part of Maria's disinterest in Andres is that she's not interested in men.
Yes.
But rather than like lean into this loving moment where Sabine is not only offering her freedom but offering her intimacy and companionship, she just kills her.
She took advantage of that situation, right? And I think we even can kind of hear the monologue of she's like, I just want to keep going and keep taking and taking and taking, even though she could feel like Sabine's life like slipping away and like she couldn't make herself stop. So yeah, that's a really great like comparison. Yeah, like she's just hungry all the time.
She wants it all. She wants,
Yes.
And she takes over Sabine's full identity. She's not Maria anymore. She is Sabine. And you're right. Like the ruby is like a sign of her first like big win in like manipulating. And it's like she's trading up for like a larger amount of power.
Oh, that is so good. I did not catch that. She just kind of keeps.
You did catch that because you said that.
Yeah, but I didn't realize that like, you know, like that she's actually like upgrading every time into something. Oh, that's so good, Lindsay.
Yeah. And this is one character. We've gotten through one character. And this is like, but that tells you like this book is, it's so layered, it's so textured, and like Maria Sabine. We're gonna talk. Should we just call her Sabine from here on out? Yeah, let's
just call her Sabine. And like I do kind of want to read a little bit of a quote because Sabine tells this to Maria because Maria always says like her name is so beautiful, like Sabine. Like she kept repeating this as a mantra in her head. And Sabine tells Maria, a name is like a dress. It might be by nature pretty or plain, but it is the person wearing it who matters the most. And like that kind of also gave us into the introduction of like, you can just pick and choose whatever name you want. Like you don't have to stick with Maria. And I think after she turns into a vampire, she takes over Sabine's name. And that's her personality now.
It's so true. Yes.
Oh, so good. Okay, let's So Maria turns into Sabine, and she is becoming a full-on vampire, and she's by herself. She's trying to figure things out. Well, not really. She's just kind of taking on the full-on predatory tendencies of being a vampire without any thought or things. She's just kind of going through life. So she's just becoming a vampire. She's just going through centuries and decades as one does. And she stumbles upon her very first vampire couple, which is Hector and Renata. And she pretty much becomes like their wheel as she's kind of trying to learn
they're
a little
a throuple.
Yes,
yeah.
they
or
do
like
become
maybe
a throuple.
She's definitely in a relationship with Renata.
Yes.
Maybe they're not a throuple. Maybe they're polyamorous.
It's
she's definitely in a relationship with Renata. Yeah.
It's a full triangle relationship.
Yeah, exactly right.
And it's kind of, but they're kind of like teaching her a little bit about their ways of life, whether they're good or bad. But with this couple, she definitely does learn that you have to be careful with how much blood you spill and how much you consume, because that's going to potentially attract negative attention. And that's kind of what happened with Hector and Renata. They massacred one of the churches, somebody escaped, and then the regular humans got mad and started hunting them down and killed them. And Sabine was able to get away, but it was kind of like her first learning on teaching of like, okay, I cannot go full on crazy because dead bodies attract dead earth, and then that's it. Like you're gonna pretty much be in danger at that point, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you see, like Hector's gone, so he's like Hector and Renata they're your like pendulum on the worst scale of vampirism. They kill children, they kill clergymen, they kill the innocents, and they revel in it. And you're exactly right. Like that moment is a lesson for Sabine in saying like, okay, I have to have some temperance. And I think the other thing that's important that we learn in that section just about the lore of this world is that pacts that are made among vampires have weight in terms of like what they can do. So like she promised Renata and Hector that she would never leave them, and that bound her to them.
That's true.
So as they're being killed by the townspeople, like she's going through an incredible amount of pain. And when they die, then that bond sort of breaks, but it's like a brutal moment for her.
And I think it's throughout all the stories, I think to your point, that we start learning a little bit more about what it means to be a vampire and all of the ground rules of it. And for somebody like Sabine, it took her a long time because she was by herself. And I'm sure Hector and Renata were only giving her information. They were withholding information from her.
You're so right. It was like a toxic relationship.
Exactly. Yes. So it was just like we're back to the circle. And I think for Sabine, I think she always kind of had this feeling that she never wanted to be like owned by anybody, but she knew that she was getting valuable information from them at some point. So it kind of worked. And also she couldn't really leave them. But, you know, like it was just kind of fascinating.
Well, no, I mean, I think you're exactly, that's what makes it interesting is that she's found like like love for the not it's not love. I don't even know. She's found lust for the first time with Renata. She's found community with people who are like her, like very selfish and live completely by their own rules and are not really concerned with like integrating into society. And the thing that she gives up is the one thing she cares about most, which is like being able to do what she wants to do.
Exactly.
And so when they die, she's like, bye. Like she
Yeah.
doesn't even really
Let's
seem
move
to,
on.
yeah, kind of. Yeah.
And this kind of takes us now. We move on into once they die, we move on to Venice. Like she is just kind of living her life. She's just going through the motions of being a vampire. And this is when we meet Alessandro and Matteo.
My two favorite characters in the book.
Amazing. They're sweetest.
I mean, I'm obsessed with these characters. Yeah.
And like I think to your point, now they're in the opposite side of the spectrum of Hector and Renata. So the way that we meet them is because Sabine was going through Venice and she's always just like, I'm hungry. I'm going to go get somebody and drain them fully and kill them. And that's it. No thought, no process. He just kind of does it. So we meet this mysterious figure, Matteo, who kind of tells her like, you can't be doing that in my city. And we can kind of immediately tell how powerful and old this character is, because I think we didn't talk about this, but vampires can set thresholds. Like they own things, or like they can kind of take ownership of areas where like other vampires cannot cross, or maybe like other humans own property too, and they can have to ask permission to be invited in. But this particular vampire was so strong that he was kind of taking ownership of the entire city. Like other vampires like couldn't feel this need that they needed to retreat or back away from that area. And he offered her to like, let me teach you your ways, because what you're doing is not really right, and then you're going to destroy my city here, which is like her first invitation into a potentially like real family.
Yeah, I mean, Matteo it's like a turf war, basically. Like, she's like, she tries to tell him, like, I can do whatever I want. I can kill whoever I want. And he's like, not in my city, you can't.
Yes.
And then that's when we learn, like, he can physically push her out of spaces. Like, to Magda's point about thresholds, like, the lore of vampires needed to be invited in holds here. They have to be invited in spaces. But what we learn is, like, they can also control spaces for other people, too, like you said. And I just love this moment. I love this like moment of found family.
It's a very paternal moment, like how you're dealing with like a rebellious adolescent, pretty much. Like you just have this. I mean, Sabine, I think she died at 20. Like she's still pretty young and she didn't really mature that much. And like it's this guy that is kind of taking interest in her and try to kind of help her out, even though she doesn't take it like that in the beginning. But it does become a nice little family.
Yeah, and he has to manipulate her into it because basically she says like, but I'm like starving. And he was like, but you're not really starving. Like he basically tells her like, you can go a lot longer than you think you can without food. And then he brings her back to his house. And that's where we meet Alessandro, who is his human partner, who is a painter and who knows that Matteo is a vampire. And they have this very symbiotic relationship where Matteo feeds on Alessandro occasionally. He also feeds on other people with Alessandro's permission. And then something about the blood like makes Alessandro's paintings really vibrant. Like it's like his muse. And it's this very different version where like everyone knows what's going on. There's a lot of honesty. There's a lot of like genuine love. And you're seeing that like there is a way to be more mindful about the way that they're attacking people, you know, or drinking blood.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes that comes from this is when Matteo tells Sabine, desire and necessity are two very different things. And this is kind of how he tries to kind of teach her of like, we need a little bit of restraint. So he introduces her to this like game of like hunting your prey, pretty much where you're going to be going a couple of weeks, but you're going to befriend a person that maybe if they disappear or something happens to them, nobody's going to miss them, because that's going to be the key to make sure that no suspicion comes onto them. So she kind of gets really hooked into this cat and mouse type of game where like she's just befriending these people and like getting to know them. And then all of a sudden she just drinks them to death. And that's it. And she loves that type of thing. And even though it doesn't sound too nice, it actually kind of helped control a lot of her like urges to like just eat as she wanted. It just kind of makes her a little bit more, allows her to be able to fit in a little bit better.
No, and I think this section is the moment where Sabine's life is most like idyllic. She has a family. Alessandro and Matteo like continue this very beautiful love, but Alessandro has said very explicitly like he will not be turned into a vampire. He's going to stay a human. And there's a theme that starts to come up here that I'll keep referencing about like roots and being buried. And basically Alessandro says like, I will be buried in my family plot. And so he ages. He ages and eventually dies a natural death. And it's this beautiful moment, but it breaks Mateo. And it's the sort of thing that snaps him out of this beautiful moment because Sabine basically says, like, why don't you just force him? Like, force him to become a vampire. You're much more strong than him. And Mateo refuses. He's like, I'm not going to break this trust and this love that we have by turning him into something that he has actively said that I'm not going to. And so because of that, they have this like complete emotional breakdown, the group of them. And I think it's interesting because you can see Sabine really returns back to her former self in this moment. Like it's a lesson for her that like loving, it's just another lesson that loving is dangerous. It puts something on the line. And she's like, fuck this. I don't want to do it. I'm going to go back to living my like hedonistic lifestyle.
If she would have gotten therapy, this would have been the moment where like everything kind of went wrong because she didn't process his life. It hit her, even though she might not accept it, like this death really hit her really hard because she came to love this human, something that she thought that she was never going to be able to do. Like that was her family and it just broke her.
And I think Mateo was the first vampire that she respected. She saw the way in which he lived like a very full life. And this death of Alessandro really puts him, it's like a parent, you know, where like it makes him really vulnerable in a way that freaks her out. And so rather than work through it with him, which he does work through it, we learn later on, and we'll talk about that later, she doesn't do that. She just leaves, basically.
Yeah. So she leaves, and now we're at the town. We're in London.
London town.
So this was kind of fun because this is where all my Bridgerton knowledge comes through.
I did also think of Bridgerton. I was like, wow, okay, this is like a real thing. Yes.
So we're in London now, and this is when she was also making herself like, hey, I'm a widow. I'm just kind of trying to live through society. She's still kind of living towards some of the learnings that Mateo taught her, which is picking out praise here and there. And that will kind of carry her through the years. And this is where we're introduced to Charlotte, or second main character of the book. Finally.
Charlotte. Yeah.
So Charlotte, or Lottie, is sent away to live with her aunt after being discovered kissing her best friend by her brother. Her aunt intends to introduce her to society in order to find a suitable husband. So obviously very similar, kind of similar to circumstances to Maria, but in reality, like Charlotte didn't really want to get married. She knew she was going to have to. But like she knew very early on that like she was attracted to women. Like women was like her thing. She did not feel anything for men. So she was just always in this situation where she didn't feel like she belonged until she met Sabine.
Yeah, well, I think she did feel like she belongs because I think she loved her family so much. Like it is the thing that keeps coming up is that her roots are her family home. But yeah, it's sort of like that gets severed at the moment that her brother sees her kissing her friend.
Yes.
And she doesn't want to leave home. She wants to like try and pursue the relationship with a friend. But because it's the tenuous situation of everyone involved, they just send her away.
Yeah.
Exactly. I had like a lot of empathy though for the family in this because I do feel like we learned that they're a little bit like liberal, you know, like non-traditional. Liberal's a modern term, but like the mom's like an artist. She's like a sculptor. And like they seem to have this beautiful life. But of course they know like she can't have this sapphic relationship, you know?
Exactly. And I think even her brother was, I mean, even though he kind of ratted her out, like the way that he talks to her about it is very frank and honest. It's like, because he's like, I don't want to get married. And he's like, well, like, sorry, like you're a woman, you have to. And not in like a malicious type of way. No. It's just like, here are the realities over genders. You and I are very different. And unfortunately, you're going to have to do this because that's what you're expected to do.
I loved that part where she was like, but you're not married. And he was like, right. And it's super unfair, but I'm a guy, so I don't have to get married.
Exactly. Which is such an honest conversation. And I love like the open communication and like, he didn't really, I mean, I'm sure he did judge her for kissing her best friend, but like it didn't come from a way that I would have expected from somebody from the 1800s. Would have been like, nyaka, I'm gonna slap you because you can't do that. It wasn't that. It was just more of a conversation and the expectations that kind of come with being a woman in the 1800s.
Okay, I have a question for you about this section because we learn like one of the things that really like sends Charlotte into a tailspin is that her friend writes her a letter and basically says she thinks she's gonna be like, I miss you, I love you. But she says, hey, it's really exciting. I'm actually going to marry your brother. Mm-hmm. And we know the brother doesn't want to get married either. Do you think that he married the friend to protect his sister?
Oh, that would be so nice.
I don't know. I couldn't tell if that was a moment that was
Huh.
aimed to hurt her. But we don't get the impression that he's that kind of guy. So I
I don't
thought
think so.
is he doing that to keep her protected so that there aren't any rumors about their relationship, but also keep her close to the family?
That it was maybe like they were just really close because she knew I was gonna marry her, kind of thing. Like I was gonna marry
or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, that's so. I didn't think about that, but that makes sense.
I went back and forth on that. I'm like, is that a betrayal? I mean, it definitely felt to Charlotte like a betrayal. But like, is it actually a betrayal? It's hard because I don't think the brother in this, like Maria's brothers suck. You know that they treat her well. But like for Charlotte's brother, I get the genuine sense that he really loved her. So
Like the
I don't
family, yeah, in general. That's a really nice thought, Lindsay. I didn't think about that. But anyway, so Charlotte gets sent. There's a couple of suitors that are kind of trying to not a couple. There's one guy, George Preston, that's kind of trying to lure her in and maybe ask her to marry her. And Savine kind of tells her like, hey, the same thing that Savine told Maria. Now Maria turns Savine, tells her, you have options. You know, you don't have to do this. Do you want your freedom so you don't have to marry George Preston? That's her name, right? His name? George Preston.
That's the suitor's name. Yeah.
And she's like, well, I guess. And that's when Sabine turns Charlotte, and now Charlotte is a vampire. But it's done in a way that it's a little bit more violent and obscure. The first food that Sabine offers to Charlotte is George. He's like, okay, here, you go ahead and drink him, kill him, and we could just pretend like you guys run away. And it's just like so nonchalant, cruel type of way of introducing her into this world.
Yeah, you can really start to see the differences between the types of vampires. Like we've talked about this, like Mateo is a type of vampire.
Yes.
OG Sabine is a type of vampire. New Sabine she loves being a vampire. There was really no resistance in her. Whereas like Charlotte, I think at any given point is really grappling with the fact that like she doesn't really enjoy any parts about being a vampire other than freedom, and then the love that she finds with Sabine. The like, you know, they start a relationship, and I think it's the first time she feels like it's like a rebound relationship.
It is. You know? It is a rebound, and then you just end up being with this in a very toxic relationship where I think Sabine loves being a vampire because of the amount of control and power that she can exhibit over people.
Particularly, yes.
Because again, I think it goes back to her beginning. I don't think she ever wanted to feel powerless. That's why she craved it. She craved freedom and to be able to do her own thing. So that now we're kind of seeing that she's trying to exert this power over Charlotte, and it just becomes this super toxic, psychologically abusive relationship. And Charlotte doesn't know any better. She's only like 18 at this point, and she just follows into whatever Sabine tells her, which is kind of scary.
It is interesting because, well, I want to talk about this when we talk about Alice. I struggle with Charlotte as a character or / Lottie, but they have a genuine love, and it seems like a love that is pure for a long time. And then, like you said, it just turns so dark so fast because much like Sabine wanted to do earlier on, she starts to feel like really like, I want to meet other people. I don't want to be in this insular relationship. I thought that was such an interesting way to talk about like, I mean, it is an abusive relationship. That's a trigger warning. I'm sorry. Yeah. But basically at the point, they are together for decades.
Century?
Yeah. I mean, it's in the 20s basically that.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, it's like 50 years or so.
Yeah. That they come into they meet two other vampires.
Yeah. Jack and Antonia.
Jack and Antonia. And they run a little speakeasy, and like all that Charlotte / Lottie wants is to have some additional friends. And you can see that immediate like marker of emotional abuse where she's like, I don't want you to have friends.
You know, it was just like, am I not enough for you?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of how she called it. And it's just this like manipulation. And when they were together, Charlotte was like, oh my gosh, Sabine is having so much. It's like these markers of the abusive relationships. Like, oh, she's laughing and she's smiling. She's having fun. And then as soon as you leave that social interaction, she just turns immediately into like, am I not enough for you? Like, I don't know what else I can do here, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's just all of those stereotypical things that you tell to your victims in a way. Like, it's just, it was so heavy.
It was, I mean, this section is super heavy. And I think it's so interesting because I think like she has a good foundation for what a good relationship will look like because of Mateo and Alessandro. Like, I think she wants love like she saw with Mateo and Alessandro, but what she didn't learn from that relationship is that relationship worked because Mateo exerted no control over Alessandro at any given point. They were always on an even playing field, even though Matteo could have taken control over Alessandro at any point. And when Alessandro dies and Sabine says, why didn't you just make him turn? Her takeaway from that death is like, you screwed up. You should have forced him into becoming a vampire and live the life that you wanted to. And so rather than taking a lesson of like that relationship worked beautifully because he didn't force him, she's like, no, I'm not going to make that same mistake. And I'm going to force this person into the kind of relationship that I want because I'm so afraid of losing her.
Exactly. And then this is when we start seeing now the withholding information now from Sabine to Charlotte. She slowly starts introducing her into like other things, like teaching her how to like manage the power of the threshold and ownership. But for instance, after that big fight, she makes Charlotte promise her, hey, never hurt me. Like, can you promise me that you're never gonna hurt me? And like she does. And Charlotte promises, but she doesn't know how binding those promises are. So again, she's exhibiting that control by not telling her everything and then just kind of making her and molding her to her will, which is unfortunate. So I think just something to call out. So Charlotte kind of realizes, because after that fight, she tries to go and kill Sabine, which she realizes she can't. So she decides to run away. She's like, I can't be in this relationship anymore. So with the help of Renata and Jack, she's able to escape and run away.
Antonia and Jack. I know.
I'm sorry. Oh my God.
It's so funny though, because I only say that because like I keep wanting to call it Antonio Renata too, because there's this weird doubling in characters. Like you see these cycles of like, like Sabine meets a couple and then Lottie meets a couple, and that introduction to those couples are what changes the course of their narrative. It's just that like it's in very different ways.
Yeah, they're just like key influx points into the story.
Yeah, it's so interesting. But Antonio and Jack are like a very nice couple.
They're so cute. They're
really cute.
Yeah, and I kind of love it because I think I forgot to mention, this is kind of key. Charlotte kind of sets up her own moral system when she's trying to feed on people, where she tries to read the thoughts of men that are vile, and those are the ones that she decides like that's gonna be my prey, because those are the ones that don't deserve to live. Yeah. And I think Renata tells Antonia tells her really clearly, like, you can't be playing God, and you're playing God is very dangerous, especially for beings like us. And that is a really important part as we kind of are introduced to future characters.
Okay, can we talk about that theme then for a second? Because I do think that I had this exact same thought, which is like, okay, if you're turning into a vampire, then why not just pick people that are really bad people? I felt like that. I felt like Lottie in that moment. And I think that moment with Antonia is so interesting to be like, how do you know that they're bad? Exactly. Who are you to decide? Like, what's the line of who's good and who's bad? And it's so tough because you want to really judge Sabine for picking people like at any given, I mean, she's killing people kind of indiscriminately. And you like really see that with Renata and Hector, who are like killing children and stuff. But then you're like, I don't know, maybe that child grew up to be a murderer. Like it gets really gray. And I think that's a really interesting part of this story of being like, you as a reader are never in a position to really judge any of the characters because you got to get on board with them. And then they do something morally gray and you're like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And there's something that we forgot to mention, but vampires can hear thoughts, especially when they're really loud and they're kind of thinking, like hear intentions and thoughts and things like that. So that's what she's using to make these decisions, which we kind of get into a Minority Report type of thing, which is, are we judging people before they act on it?
And
she's just making those decisions, which pretty interesting. But Charlotte leaves, she gets away, and she tries to live as normal of a life as possible. Decades pass and she settles in Italy with a girl named Giada, and that's kind of when we learn that Sabine never really let her go, and she's been following her and is kind of trying to torture her as she's killing or doing things to her partners throughout all of these decades. She kills Giada, like Sabine finds her, she kills Giada, unfortunately, even though Giada had been in a relationship with Charlotte for a while. So Charlotte decides to escape to the US because she figured that could be as far away as she can potentially go. And she goes throughout her life just betting and hanging out with some girls here and there, not really building any sort of like long-term relationships until the late 90s, where she meets Penny. She finds out that Sabine turned Penny, and then Charlotte makes a decision to kill her. And like immediately she continues to play God because she's like, well, she didn't choose this, I'm just gonna go ahead and kill her. And that's kind of like the life that she continues to live on in throughout the US until we kind of get into modern Boston with Alice, where she just had a one-night stand with her and then she leaves her. And then she thinks that that's the end of it.
Wow, that was a lot.
I'm sorry, I just went through a lot. But
you're right though. I hadn't even connected the playing God of like killing Penny, because that is.
Yeah, like she was like, oh my, because it was so sad. Like Penny was so excited because Savine told me that you didn't want to turn me, and she's like, oh yeah, and then beep, just like grabs a brush and kills her.
I mean, and you just like, it's so tough because the time goes on, like Sabine gets more and more evil. Like she's killing all, yeah, I mean, you're right. Like the killing of Lottie's partners, of Charlotte's partners, and then turning her is like a real, she's ratcheting up her abuse very quickly.
And not only that, it's just like, Sabine just kind of gets this thrill from like the chase, finding her prey, and now Charlotte has become her new mouse, and she's just playing this game with her, like throughout the story, which I thought that was so fun. How she's like, this is her new game. Like this is like a game to her of trying to make Charlotte come out, and just she's her new prey.
That is such a good. Yeah, you're so right, because like that's how they meet. Cat and Mouse is like Sabine's OG playbook.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was so cool how all of those like things go throughout the book.
I totally agree. That brings us into modern times. You can see like we're all weaving the threads together, and we get to Alice, who we should say like these things, we're giving you these things chronologically. That is not how the book gives them to you. But I think it's an interesting way to think about how the themes build over time and are sort of interweaved. So Alice is a college student in Boston who was born in Scotland and moves to the U.S. to sort of start a new life. She has a one-night stand, like Magda said, with Lottie after a party, and then when she wakes up, she basically is a vampire. So she's very much alone in the world. She doesn't have that many. It's that like first couple of weeks of college where you don't have that many friends, and you're sort of feeling out like who your group is going to be and how you're going to navigate life in college by yourself, away from your family. And it's in this moment that Alice is turned into a vampire. And Alice is fucking cool because she starts to exhibit vampiric traits. And it's really funny because I think this keeps coming up where she's like testing the lore of vampires. Like, okay, they get sick in the sun, but she can see herself in the mirror, but you know. And so she goes on this investigation to try and find like other vampires. I thought that was so smart. And she like stumbles on a bar where or a coffee shop. Where she finds another vampire.
Yeah,
and
Ezra.
Ezra. And she's like, do you know this girl? And she shows a picture of Lottie / Charlotte. And he's like, I do. And all of the stories converge in this moment.
Exactly. And you know, like Alice is like, I'm pretty sure she turned me because I have no idea what's going on. And it's like, I don't think she would do that. Like she doesn't turn people, but now they meet her. And then that's kind of when they realize that it was Savine. Savine is back in the picture, and she's the one that turned Alice into a vampire. And this is where Alice gets pulled into this feud between Savine and Charlotte, and like she's like, what the heck am I supposed to do? And this is when we start seeing the true colors of Charlotte, because like she tells her like a straight up lie, which we didn't know when we read this. Do you wanna, which is like, if you kill Savine, she's like, I can't kill Savine because like I have the promises and we have binding words where I cannot hurt her. But if you were to kill her, then you might be able to turn back into a human because you just got turned. And now I think I remember reading that and I was just like, what? I don't think I've ever heard that lore anywhere.
I remember reading that part and thinking like, if that's true, I'm throwing this book across the room.
It just kind of came out of nowhere. But it was just kind of weird. But anyways, Alice is like, well, I guess I have no other option. I'm going to have to play along and try to see if I can kill Savine. And she ultimately does. Like she's able to kind of, Savine finds her, they go into an apartment and she lures Savine into trying to kill her. And immediately like Alice, like a badass, she just like stabs her and kills her, which was like really quick but really smart in a way, the way that she did it.
Yeah, I think I don't want to dig too much into the ending. Like we kind of talked about it, but I don't think we should go through it because like ultimately I think what's really interesting is what you said at the beginning of that, which is like this scene really shows how vampirism like erodes the human soul over time, because Charlotte is manipulating. She's manipulating Alice to do what she wants her to do exactly the same way that Sabine manipulated people into doing what she wanted them to do. And it's because there's this line in the book where it's Mateo talking about aging in the vampire world. And he says, for them, meaning humans, Age takes its toll in decades. For us, it is the work of centuries, and it is not measured in wrinkles or gray hair. Where others rot without, we rot within. And I think this is that moment where we see like these characters are at various stages of rot, and Lottie is rotting.
Yes. And like we knew, and I think even Jack even tells her like the person that turned Jack, he killed that person, that vampire, because they knew pretty early on that at one point or another your humanity is gone, and other vampires kind of start seeing some of those things, and he made promise Jack to go ahead and end it as soon as he knew that he was not fully there. So like it's like a, I don't want to say like a common knowledge thing, but they knew that for however long you're going to be living, your soul is going to be rotting and you need to end it.
And it's tough because it's hard to tell. Like for me, do you think Lottie was always problematic?
No, I don't think she always was. Like in my mind, I don't think she was. I think she was just a dumb teenager trying to look for an escape. And I think her only long-term relationship was so abusive that she created this coping mechanism that was not right. But I think it is what she thought she needed to do in order to like survive and protect those around her.
I struggle with Lottie because like I think you're right. I didn't really take into the fact that like how long she was in an abusive relationship, but I struggle with her because she's such a passive character. Like she's the kind of person who is convinced that things happen to her.
Yes.
Like she, even in the beginning when she's turned, before the abuse starts, she doesn't want to go get food. She wants Sabine to go get it for her. Mm-hmm. She doesn't want to be in the muck of it. And like even as she has these like one night stands with these women, she knows that Sabine is chasing her. She says she doubles back and checks on them, but we know that most of them die, and she continues to put them in this position. And so I struggle with Charlotte because I'm like, is she selfish? She is selfish. Ultimately, like she's passive and selfish in a way that's different than Sabine, but ultimately just as selfish.
Oh, and I think she is, or like she tries to brush things off. I think at some point we learned that she was kind of trying to check in on her past partners as well, making sure that they wouldn't. And she just kind of stopped and she's like, they're fine, it's cool.
Yes.
Until something else kind of started rising up and she's like, oh crap, I guess I should have paid attention. And not only that, like we don't see like any remorses when like Penny died, like when she killed Penny or anything. She's just like, well, it has to be done. I guess I'll have to kill her now. Like, so
which
yeah,
is supposedly
she's
someone she loved. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough because Sabine is like, you're supposed to think Sabine is evil, but it's like Sabine is operating within the she is evil. Like, I mean, she's a straight up serial killer. She like keeps trinkets from all the people that she killed. It's
guys,
really creepy. But I think Alice is like an interesting juxtaposition to that because Alice's whole storyline, which we like didn't go super into, but is a lot about grief. Like she lost her mother very young. She doesn't really remember her, but that's this absence. And her sister, who is older than her, has a lot of anger about that, particularly after they have a stepmom who comes into the picture. And so a lot of Alice's personality is about being very even-keeled, being very familiar with loss, very familiar with death, but also very familiar with managing the way that death shapes people's personalities. And so I think it makes her like a really interesting candidate to be a vampire because she knows death so well, and she doesn't have that same like hunger, I think, you know?
I mean, her very first food, she was able to stop herself and let the person go.
Right.
She was already so restrained.
Such a good point.
And like she already, I think, and maybe that's like the thing. I mean, she didn't have a teacher, but she kind of knew the lore. So she was like, I'm going to try to like stop myself. Even though the hunger was there also consuming, she was able to kind of set the boundaries of like what it meant for her to kind of survive within this world. Just cool.
I love it. I have high hopes. Again, like we end the book, but we sort of leave things open-ended.
Yes.
But for me, like I hope that Alice ends up like a Mateo. That's
I hope so too. And I kind of love that she, you know, the last thing that how we ended is like it's her talking to her dad on the phone.
Yes.
So it made me believe that hopefully she's not gonna run away. She's gonna try to find a way to live within her family or surrounded by her somehow. I don't know how that's gonna work, but I'm hoping that she's not going to be isolating herself because it sounds to me like that's the worst thing that you can do. Like you can kind of see that maybe we're starting moving on into some themes, but you can kind of see like the most successful vampires were not isolated. They were surrounded and they had some goals. We have Mateo and Alessandro. We have Antonia and Jack. Ezra, who had his coffee shop or bars or whatever it was throughout time, but it was within the community of this world. So I'm hoping that Alice understands that and it's going to make her be more successful in her vampire life.
Okay, and this is why V.E. Schwab is an amazing writer, because I wrote something down about like that point about community, you know, that you're making. You're 100% right. Like I could just sit here and clap for the rest of the episode if you want.
Please do.
But I think I think it's interesting because Mateo's whole thing is like, he says something about like putting down roots. Like you can put down roots in a place. You don't always have to be running. And obviously like roots and soil and like being rooted in soil comes up consistently as a theme in the book, where like obviously there's the midnight soil. Alessandro talks about being buried in his family's plot. Mateo talks about like why run when you can put down roots. And one of the things that we hear about Alice is that you're a root you are the kind of bloom that thrives in any soil.
I know, that was so beautiful.
And so I just think like and they like, you know, I just think that that's like a beautiful way to talk about community in the context of this book. I don't know.
I know. It was, who knew that a book about 3 lesbian vampires would be such a like loving story about family within very, very subtle subtext.
I know. I feel like we didn't even scratch the surface, and I'm still like, we would
It was just so much. But I think to your point earlier, this just kind of talks about this is my very first V.E. Schwab book that I've read. And this is my very first one. And her writing, it is beautiful. Like the way that she does her storytelling and themes come back throughout and kind of weave throughout the book. It's just so beautifully done. It is definitely one of those that this book was a grower for me. I finished it and I was just like, okay, that was good. But then I kept thinking about it as we were kind of drafting out our outline for the book, for the episode. And I'm like, this is kind of smart, the way that she integrated all of these little things throughout the story. It was just so well done.
I think you're right, because I was midway through the book. I read the book pretty quickly. Toward the end of the book, I'll be honest, for me, I didn't love. It just it's a very different tonally. Like the plot kind of catches up. It's less character focused, and we're like, it's why
we're wrapping up.
Yes, and I rushed Magda through the end because for me, it's like not the most interesting part of the book. I'm sorry for rushing you, okay. But yeah, I just like, I didn't really know if I liked it that much. And now as we've been talking about it, I'm like, I think it was really beautiful.
Okay, but can I tell you something to you about it? Because I kind of, the more I thought about the ending, I loved it because it was very Romeo and Juliet coded for me, because we had Sabine who was stabbed, and then we had Charlotte who was initially poisoned. And it's like this poetic ending of this tragic love story that is ending this way. And I was just like, oh, this is... I mean, obviously Romeo and Juliet wasn't that toxic. Well, maybe a little bit. But like in this one, it's just kind of like, I don't know. I kind of love the way that V.E. Schwab positioned that. I don't know if that was her intention, but that's just kind of the vibe that it gave me. And I thought it was really beautifully done.
That's so positive, because I feel like I don't view Sabine and Lottie as love. I don't think anything about
it's a toxic love. It's a toxic relationship.
You're right.
Yeah.
I view it as like punishment for not making different decisions. They really bothered me. Like Lottie in particular, she's my least favorite character in the book, because she's my least favorite kind of person.
She has the victim mentality, like you said. She's a victim.
She's a damsel in distress, and I hate that.
Yes.
I don't know.
Even though like she has so much agency over her power, she's older now and she can make decisions, but she decided to use this Alice, who is just going to be introduced into this world, as a pawn to make her life be better. And her goal was to alter, like what Lottie wanted was like, okay, she's gonna kill Sabine for me, I'm gonna kill Alice, and then everything's gonna go back to normal.
I'm gonna live my best life.
It's gonna be great. And it's like, no, not really. But anyways.
Okay.
We just talked a lot, guys, but it's a really good book. I enjoyed it.
It was beautiful.
Yeah,
it really was beautiful.
I might just like put a post later with like all my favorite quotes from this, because there's so many. Like, god dang, V.E. Schwab can write. Like, it is beautiful.
Is there one that you want to end the pod with?
I love this one, and it's when we had Maria, she tells herself, she was living with her in-laws, and she was kind of trying to have this little power of herself that she can potentially have freedom, and she tells herself, it is one thing to be stormed and another to be conquered. And I thought that was so beautiful.
It's a perfect way.
It's just like, things happen and you have to move on. And even though we don't like Maria, I kind of like that mentality.
You're exactly right. Like, things happen to you. And this is why you can't hate Maria/Sabine, because you're right. Like, even though bad things happened to her, she was like, I'm not going to let the man get me down. Like, I'm going
to go through this. So what a better way to end the podcast.
That was a perfect choice on your part.
Thank you. Well, thank you for listening to Literally Books, the podcast,
where we say what we read
and we mean what we say. Bye.